Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Thomas Brush. I make indie games for a living, and so does my guest Jonas. Jonas, how you doing, buddy?
Doing really well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem, man. So this is going to be a really, really casual conversation, guys, and we're going to talk about why solo game dev sucks. It absolutely sucks, and I think, Jonas, you can agree a little bit there.
Yeah, we're both doing solo game dev, and we're both done with that. And in this video, you will learn why.
Yeah, I've actually been kind of not doing solo game dev for a while, and we're going to talk about why you should do solo game dev, why maybe you don't want to do it, and if you're in the right season of your life. So we'll talk about that, and hopefully maybe we'll get some good spicy comments in the comment section. We'll see, because I know a lot of you are solo devs and a lot of you aren't. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the launch of your game, how to make indie games, how to do it full time, how to make it a living, and your marketing strategy. And I know you're probably in a little bit of a stressful situation right now because you're about to launch your game, right?
Yeah, my first solo project is about to release, and I'm gonna get some advice from Thomas, hopefully.
Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about how to hit the Steam front page, which can't make any promises. I've done it a couple times, and I believe it was a couple times. Maybe it was only once, but anyway, we'll talk about all of that. So I'm gonna run an intro, Jonas, and then we'll get started. By the way, guys, feel free to download my free 2D game kit below. It's totally free. It's my treat to you. I used this exact 2D game kit to make a game for PewDiePie in 14 days, and then I got to play it in front of his subscribers, which was really awesome. So download that. Use it however you want. It's my treat to you. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so why does solo game dev suck? Let's sort of air that out. The dirty laundry. Why does solo game dev suck, at least in your opinion?
I'll try to make it short. It takes extremely long. I made a game called Islanders in a team before. We finished that game in 3 months. It was a great game, very high quality stuff. And now it took me 4 years to make a game alone, and it's not really any better than what we made in a team of 3 before. So making games in a team, way more efficient, better results, better chance of success. Yeah. And it's also not as lonely.
I know, right? So this is an interesting, you made an interesting comment, which is Islanders, your previous game that you did with a team. You said it was better. Do you think it's better than your current game? Or you said it's, yeah.
I'm saying they are both very competent games, but the development of Islanders was way more time efficient, way more time efficient, because everybody in the team could kind of specialize on one thing, right? I really like doing game design and balancing and gameplay coding. So for Islanders, I pretty much just did that, and then we had a really talented artist who could just do that. And when I do art, it takes so much longer because I have to take multiple attempts. Then the first one turns out to be crap after half a year. I look back at it and I'm like, damn, I have to redo that art. That's just not the case when you have like a really dedicated artist on your team.
I know.
So if you have a couple of really specialized people that can do certain things really well, that helps so much. It's so much more time efficient, and it makes for a better product probably.
Yeah, I've had that experience as well, because I'm working on my third game, and my second one, I had one other team member, and he did the code, and I did like everything else. And then this one, I've got a 3D modeler. I had a guy who did all the code base. He's not really working on the project anymore because he sort of he basically made Source Engine for the game, which is really cool, inside of Unity. And then I do like the art direction, and then I've actually got a guy doing music as well. And I've just noticed that the game is so much better than anything I could have done on my own. And I guess my concern is, though, I like to have a team that I understand who's getting what, right? So paying people or royalties. And so I am curious, with Islanders, you had a team that you kind of had to, maybe, you don't have to answer this if you don't want, but split up revenue and stuff. And I'm sure that the problem is that you said both games are basically equal in quality, but you're probably maybe going to make more money from Will You Snail because it's just you, right? Whereas you don't necessarily have to split revenue.
It's obviously more money per game, but if it's gonna be more money in total,
yeah,
that's gonna be a hard one to crack. I can tell you that.
I see.
No bragging.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. So you're saying that maybe with a team, even though you're splitting up revenue, it might be worth it because that game is going to be like 4 times better and sell 4 times as many copies. That
yes,
kind of thought.
I'm saying exactly that, and I'm also, it's, you know, every game is a little different. Islanders was a very casual game with a very big target audience.
Mm-hmm.
Now Will You Snail is a more niche game, so it just has a naturally smaller target audience. So there are different factors playing into that.
Okay.
So it's hard to make a direct comparison.
Right. So what's your personality like? Are you somebody who likes to spend time with people while you work, or do you like to sort of hunker down, be a hermit, and work alone? Because you mentioned you get kind of lonely as a solo dev, and I do too, but I actually kind of enjoy the loneliness. I like to be alone and just talk to a camera and pretend I'm social, when in reality I'm just talking to a camera on my YouTube channel. But I'm curious how you work. Do you like working with people?
I think there's this definition, right, that introverts recover energy from being alone and extroverts recover energy from being with people. I'm definitely an introvert. I need my alone time, otherwise I completely break apart. But that doesn't mean I don't enjoy being with people or working with people. I very much do enjoy working with people, but I do need my alone time. That's for certain.
Yeah. Does your YouTube audience drain you? Because they're people.
Yeah, I mean,
you know.
But I don't have to engage with them. Like, if I don't feel like engaging with them, I just turn off the computer or turn off Discord, and you know.
Okay. So
you know, and also I would say my tier list for working solo, working in a team, I would say bottom tier is working with the wrong people. That's like the worst thing you can do.
Yeah.
Then middle tier is working alone, fairly decent, can work. And then top tier is obviously working with the right team.
Okay.
That is what I would say.
Yeah. So what's the hardest thing? Well, I mean, there's a lot of questions related to solo dev. What are all the things you've done just you? And I'm assuming it's everything, but I was just curious if you could just list them out and how you did it, because that's a huge feat, dude.
I mean, yeah, I'm wearing a lot of different hats. Like, I do the programming, I do the art, I make all of the sound effects, I compose the entire soundtrack. Actually, the soundtrack is something I'm kind of proud of. It's 25 tracks, almost an hour of music.
Whoa.
I like it.
Wait, you did the music? That's crazy.
Yeah.
What are you using to do the music?
Cubase.
Okay.
But you make music as well sometimes, right? I've heard some of your
I
tracks.
do, and
pretty good stuff.
Yeah, and thank you. I do my own music too. I do it in Logic Pro on Apple. I'm not using Apple products right now because I'm not really writing music, but I used to write a lot of music, and I didn't usually meet a lot of developers who would create their own music. And you're doing the art as well, right? Okay.
And the marketing and like the YouTube videos at the same time.
What's the thing that is the hardest thing for you to figure out? Like, of all the hats, which one's the hardest thing for you to figure out?
I feel like the one where I'm handicapped the most is the art, the visuals of the game.
Really? They look so pretty.
But they're also so freaking important for marketing. You're so incredibly handicapped if your graphics don't look right. And I feel like for Will You Snail, I got to a decent level, but it's still very much program art, and still, I think, worse than what I could have done with a dedicated artist.
Okay.
But I tried to make the best of it, but it took me way longer than it should have, and it could look even better, I think.
What are you using for the art? What's your process?
For art, I very much have a trial and error like approach, because my approach to art is kind of, if you find it difficult to create something beautiful, then just create a bunch of different things and decide which one is you like the best. Because like deciding which one is the most beautiful is way easier than creating something beautiful. So I just throw a bunch of stuff against the wall and then see what I like best.
Wait, what do you mean? Are you saying you sort of guess and check styles?
That is a very slow process.
So are you saying you like guess and check different styles and pick the one that works best for you? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I remember in the beginning I even went as far as to write a script that randomizes the colors of the game, and then I would just zap through random color schemes and I wrote down what I liked.
Yeah. So there wasn't really a rhyme or reason with your art style.
I don't know. It kind of evolved. It's like, don't question me about art stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's where I have to question you. We need to do this the other way around. How do you approach making art for your games?
There's a science, at least for me, when it comes to color. Color is one of those things where if you actually follow the science behind it, you actually look like a genius. And I'm not saying I look like a genius, but I'm saying that you can get closer. And I'm getting closer and closer to that point where I can pick a color scheme and immediately it looks good. It didn't used to be that way because I've been doing this for like 15 years, just animation and game dev and illustration. And what I've learned is the best way to have a beautiful color scheme that works with your marketing, that's the important part, because you need a trailer and you need people to buy your game. And when you have a good color scheme, you can make anything look pretty. So what I do is I actually use, there's color wheels that show different color schemes. So one of them is called the triadic color scheme. And so an example of it would be like orange and its complementary color, which would be purple. And then you would throw in, let's see here, like a yellowish green. And I'm not sure if people are going to rip me apart in the comments, but it makes a triad. It's if there's a big color wheel, you're picking the three, right? Or you can just do complementary colors and I always choose opposites. I always do that. So if your snail was yellow, you would choose like a blue, right? Or like a tealish blue for like all the background elements. So, and also something to keep in mind with color, and then I'll shut up, is, and your colors look great in Will You Snail, by the way. But one of the things that I keep in mind with color is instead of a 50-50 split of two different colors, let's say you choose two colors, what you do is you wash in a sort of a monochromatic color, like a ton of tealish blue. And then your character, the snail, is a vibrant pop of like red or orange. And then you even add a little bit of a glow to it with a post-processing effect. And you could do this with just squares. So I'm a huge fan of making very simplistic shapes and then making sure the color has a science to it. And you can just type in color wheels on Google, and you can just look at all the different color schemes and just pick one, and there's science to that. It just works with the human brain. But your game looks great.
I agree that color wheels and predefined color schemes make things a lot easier, but I'm afraid that you still need a little bit of experience to execute even with those colors correctly, because you kind of need a feel for how much of each color, and it's not as easy as just slapping those 5 or 3 colors on there and it automatically looks good. It looks better than when you just pick colors completely at random, but there's a little more to it, I feel like.
So what about marketing, dude? So artwork, it's your thorn in your side, right? And I don't see, if that's the struggle for you, then dude, you're all set, because your art looks great. But what about marketing? Like I know you mentioned you got a publisher for console, but you're doing marketing all yourself, right?
Not entirely anymore.
Okay.
Like as I was approaching launch, I felt that I got very overwhelmed by all of the things that are still to do. Like there's so many tiny bug fixes and improvements I still want to make to the game. Yeah. And then there's the marketing on top of that. So I actually hired a community management / marketing company to help me out a little bit. And so far they've been great, but I can't really say too much about that because we've only been working together for like 1 week.
Oh wow!
Brought them on a little too late, so
dude, that's
a little tight before launch. But
so what about solo developers out there who can't afford to do that? Are they screwed?
No, of course not. Like for Islanders, we didn't have that. For Islanders, we went such a minimalist approach with marketing, and the reason why it worked for Islanders is that it was such an appealing game. Like we posted one trailer on Twitter, and it just kind of went auto-viral.
Yeah.
We didn't have to do anything. Then press started reaching out, and the game sold itself because it just looked nice.
Okay.
For Will You Snail, I'm having a harder time because, if you compare graphics from Islanders to Will You Snail, not quite the same level.
Yeah.
Like the appeal is not quite on the same level, and that makes such a huge difference. It's really for graphics and for visual appeal, it's exponential return. Like it multiplies all of your marketing efforts. Like if you have a more appealing game, a more nice looking game that people want to play, you need to put half the time into marketing and still get the same results.
Yeah. I've definitely found that to be true. I think that's astute of you to say because, and you didn't mention this, but maybe we're agreeing, 2D games are harder to sell than 3D games. And Islanders was a 3D isometric top-down game, right? It wasn't really isometric, was it? It was a perspective, but it kind of had that feel.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a 3D game.
Yeah. So when you make a trailer with a 3D game, and I've been finding this with my first person game, it's like you don't just have to show, the character running with the gun, or with Islanders, you don't just have to show the gameplay. If you want, you can create sequences where the camera circles around all the beautiful art. And so you can just make a more cinematic trailer. And so I guess my question is, your work, have you had the viral moment yet with Will You Snail? Like where the trailer it gets 250,000 views or something like that, or is it more of a grind with Will You Snail, just maybe because it's a 2D game?
It's a way bigger grind for Will You Snail.
Okay.
I can definitely say that. As mentioned, basically Islander sold itself because then again it also got very great conversions on Steam. Steam as well is very algorithm driven. So if Steam sees people very often buy this game and they really like clicking this thumbnail, then obviously Steam shows it to more and more users. So basically, we didn't have to do anything. It's really great.
Right.
And for Will You Snail, it's so far it's way more of an uphill battle. But
Okay.
I have a different advantage this time that I didn't have for Islanders, and that is my YouTube channel.
I know.
And I'm hoping that will balance it out a little bit. So we'll see how that goes.
Are you willing to disclose your wish list numbers?
I think it's something like 25,000.
Great.
Something like that.
That's great. That's what I had when I launched Neversong, which was my a 2D platforming game. And the benefit of the wish list numbers is it really helps you with launch. So you can hopefully get that splash. And like you said, the Steam algorithm will notice that you've got that big splash. And I think, I'm not sure I honestly don't know the numbers, but I think Neversong is something around, I think maybe it's $150,000 just on Steam, which isn't a ton of money, but I think most people in the audience are like, that would be awesome if I could do that.
That's pretty decent.
Yeah. But the real money from Neversong came from other places, like deals and stuff like that with platforms. But, that's pretty good. And so my thought process is I had 25,000 wish lists as well. And we didn't have we didn't have a PR team or anything. It was just me and my publisher, and we treated it as they weren't very big at the time. And so we treated launch pretty chill. And it was cool because, we sort of had this relief because Apple bought Neversong from us for their platform, Apple Arcade. And they paid us, and that payment was actually such a relief. And so the stress of launch was gone because I was like, well, we got Apple, so we can launch on Steam and we're not going to worry too much. But it still went well, and we had that advantage. I had that advantage of my YouTube channel to really help with that. So I guess a good question is, if we've got solo devs in the audience, do you recommend that they go the YouTube devlog route and make videos about their game to ultimately, Danny does this really well. Danny makes sure in every one of his videos to say, hey, wishlist my game. And by the way, guys, wishlist Jonas's game in the description. It's an awesome looking game. It's called Will You Snail. But my question is, should solo developers out there start a YouTube channel or just build a big social media presence to build up those wish lists?
I think you should pick one social media platform and try to hone in on that. It doesn't necessarily have to be YouTube because everybody has slightly different skill sets. If you don't like being in front of a camera or something, then just write a blog or pick Twitter, or there are different platforms for everybody.
Right.
Some people are really great at making like nice looking gifs of their game, and they'll feel right at home on Twitter.
Okay.
The main thing I would say is don't try to spread yourself too thin. Pick one main platform and then maybe one backup platform and try to master those.
Okay. So what's your primary platform?
My primary platform is YouTube. My backup platform is Twitter.
Okay. That's a great way to think about it. It definitely is. It relieves a lot of the stress, and that's true for me as well. Actually, I'm not a Twitter guy. Twitter annoys me. I have a good following on Twitter. I think I've got like 13,000 followers on Twitter, but Twitter annoys me, and so Instagram is a much more pleasant place to be. Everyone's a lot more encouraging on Instagram. So I'm building that up as well. What's the benefit of YouTube devlogs? How many subscribers do you have, and what kind of engagement do you see? And I hate to use the word conversion, but like a conversion into a wish list. Do you see a pretty good conversion rate?
Yeah. But one thing you have to keep in mind is that everything comes with advantages and disadvantages, right? So the advantage of YouTube is that engagement is really good. Wishlist conversions are really good. So my Steam wishlists 100% correlate with the views I get on YouTube. So whenever my views on YouTube go up, my Steam wishlists go up.
And like the ratio of conversions.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
What's the range of conversions? I'm not sure like how many convert, but
yeah.
It's pretty decent. Like,
so if you don't mind, can I ask you an honest question? Would you do YouTube if it didn't create wish lists and didn't build up your potential for revenue?
Probably not. No, I started YouTube.
I know, same here. I mean, people don't understand it is a business. You're running a business.
Yeah, sure, but there's no problem with that, right?
No,
because everybody's in for their own benefit, and that's the same is true for the viewers. Like the viewers are not here because they want to support you out of the because they just love you or whatever, or because they believe in God and they think they need to support the small indie devs. The viewers are here for entertainment. They're here for information. And it's a trade, we provide that and we get the wish list in return. So everybody gets what they want.
Yeah, it is a trade. And how you handle, like for those of you who want to start a YouTube channel, providing value while also sneaking in the ad read of like, hey, you can check out my game, or hey, here's a free game. Like I offer a free game kit. I offered it during this podcast. I think what people don't realize is even when Danny goes, you should wishlist my game on Steam. He's not just doing a one-off thing. That is the target. Like with a video. I mean, I can't speak for him, and I've actually started a conversation with him. I'd love to have him on the show. But and I'll ask him this: is the target wish lists? Is that actually what your YouTube videos are all about? Because if he said yes, I would not blame him at all. Because he's got one of the top voted wishlist games on Steam, right? And I got 25,000 wishlists for Neversong. And so it's something to consider if you're a YouTube developer, or if you're an indie or a solo developer, or even if you have a small team. Creating infotainment on YouTube is massive because it's really hard. Can you imagine if you didn't have your YouTube channel? Would you be able to secure enough wish lists to actually have a pretty decent launch? Do you think you'd be able to figure it out somewhere else?
I would have figured it out somewhere else.
Yeah. Like another social media platform.
I would have gone for Twitter, or would have gone for another social media platform.
Okay.
It would have been equally successful. I don't know. Probably not, because video. I'm good at making video stuff.
You really are, dude. You're hilarious, and it's funny. I have a lot of game dev friends on Discord, and they always bring up your name because your content is hilarious. So really quick question. I think a lot of solo developers right now listening to this are thinking there's just too much to do.
Yeah.
You know, do you have to be kind of a genius to be a solo dev?
No, I don't think so. You just have to play it smart, I think. Be very aware of where your strengths are and try to play into those strengths. Right? This, basically, what I talked about with the social media platforms earlier. If making videos or talking on camera is not your strength, then don't make a YouTube channel. Then do something that fits your skill set a little better. And yeah, I think the same is true for your game. If you're like a really good artist, then make a more art-focused game. And there are a lot of ways to find your way through that if you're smart about it. Obviously, make small games. Small games can be just as profitable as big games. You should always make small games. As a small indie developer, one of the things everybody says but nobody does, me included.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, do solo developers need to understand marketing? Do they need to understand how to run a business?
They either need to understand how to do marketing or they need to understand how to find somebody who can help them with marketing.
Okay. So
or they need to understand how to make a game that is so incredibly appealing that it sells itself.
Good luck.
All the options, yeah.
Yeah. That's what I used to tell myself. And I had a really high view of myself growing up as a teenager. I was like, I'm the greatest artist. I'm going to make great games and change the world. And I remember sitting at dinner or something with my father-in-law and or my future father-in-law. And I said, no, he was like, do you have a marketing plan? And I said, no, it'll sell itself. And he was like, you absolutely need a marketing plan. It's not going to sell itself. And you know what's crazy is even with this massive marketing plan, and I think for Pinstripe, my very first game, we had a publisher, Armor Games. We had a $10,000 marketing budget for a PR company. And even with that, the launch it wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. I think we had grossed maybe $40,000 in a month. But the problem is that when you work with a publisher, and we could talk about your publisher in a sec if you don't mind,
Sure.
When you work with a publisher, they take a cut and they also, recoup the advance. So the advance that they had paid me, I had to recoup that. And so I personally didn't make any money within like the first 3 months, which was tough because I just found out we were going to have a kid. So it's like, it's a ton of, it's stressful. It's really, really stressful ultimately. And that was with a publisher. So I can't imagine going full solo with no publisher. And so I guess I wanted to transition the conversation to how is preparing for this launch going for you? Are you freaking out?
Yes. To make it short.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, I'm too far gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you probably know the feeling. It's horrifying. Absolutely horrifying, because your game's never gonna be perfect. Like, you're in your mind, you're aware of all of these little issues. Most game developers are incredibly self-aware about like all of the things that are wrong with their game. And then you just have to release it anyway, because it's never going to be perfect. And it's very scary. It's very, very scary, especially if you put 4 years into it, if you put a lot of love and effort into it. And yeah, you just kind of feel that urge of just pushing it back and back and back. But you can't keep doing that forever, and you just have to get out there at some point.
What are you going to do if it flops?
Luckily, I think I have enough financial backup to give it another go after that, even if Will You Snail flops.
Okay. I don't think it will, by the way. I just, I make sure that for me personally, that I'm not suddenly in shock and I don't know what to do with my life.
Yeah.
If something flops, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's definitely very important, that you kind of play being a game developer like a strategy game. You're like very strategic about how many resources do you have, what do you invest them in, and resources are both your time as well as your money. Yes, I maybe you can say something about that, because I know you are very strict about this. Like you don't spend any time on something you don't see any return on investment on
lately. Yeah. Well, I have 2 kids now, and I have a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I have a home. I just recently bought some land that we want to build a house on, and I'm really, really, really lucky and blessed because things have been going really well with the studio. But my point in that, and I'm married, and I've got a dog. He's laying behind me. You can see his butt right there, just in that little corner right there. There it is. Hey, buddy. Nice. But I have a family, and I have people relying on me. And suddenly you go, I don't give a crap about being an artist. Now, obviously, I'm being a little bit sarcastic here, but that's the last thing on my list right now. Right now, it's like, no, I want to build a profitable studio. And that's what I teach my students. That's what I teach my subscribers. My channel is all about entrepreneurship in the game dev sphere. If you want to be an artist and a purist, have at it. But once you get a little bit older, I sound like an old man right now, but once you get older and you have kids or people dependent on you, it becomes a little bit more of a priority to make money. And so what I do is, maybe you could speak to this. If a image isn't or a video or some post about my game's development doesn't do well on social media, it doesn't get traction, I actually conclude that the game won't get traction either. So a good test case is if your images and your videos that you're posting on social media aren't getting good traction, it means that you need to refocus on getting that hook for the game, whether it's the graphics or the mechanics, and just twist and keep making tweaks as you're posting on social media. If profitability is the goal, right? If profitability is not the goal, then make your game and have fun. But if profitability is one of your primary goals, then you should use social media as almost like the alpha test, right? To see, is this game marketable, right? And by the way, just because something's marketable doesn't make it a good game. But marketability is kind of the first barrier you have to cross over before actually releasing your game, because you need to figure out, is this going to be marketable? And if it's not, if for some reason it's not getting traction, I need to figure out why and then refocus. Have you ever had that experience?
I mean, I think what you've just said is very, very clever, and I 100% agree. It's such a big pitfall if you just make a game that is not very marketable,
right?
And then at the end you figure out, okay, either I cannot market this, or I have to spend like 100x the amount of time on marketing compared to other developers to make up for it. It doesn't, it's not good. So I think what you said, that you try out the marketability of your game early on, is very, very smart. I wish I would have done this a little more as well. I mean, if you kind of have an audience, it's a little harder because they just like everything you do oftentimes.
Well, that's I've totally found that to be true. And when my thinking is, look for growth. Here's a good metric. If you're getting growth on specifically like Twitter or Instagram, and it's people who like your game, that's a good indicator, as opposed to no growth but just a lot of comments and likes. Comments and likes are like, well, those are just from your current fans. But what about, are you getting growth? Like, are you getting new followers, right? Because that means the algorithm is pushing your content because it's getting good engagement, right? Which, by the way, I'm not saying this happens with me. I'm trying to figure it out. And what I've found is, this is so funny, with Father, my current first person shooter game, the one I had a pixelated retro style, and I actually really preferred this style. I liked this style. It looks like a PlayStation game. It didn't get a lot of traction. I hired a 3D modeler, and he repurposed all the graphics to look more kind of like, it almost looks like if Wind Waker, Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, and Half-Life had a baby. That's what the style looks like. It's kind of toony, but like serious. Then all of a sudden the traction went up. And I was like, so if the traction on social media is going up, that means that this thing is way more marketable than it was. even though the comments are saying, Thomas, a lot of comments are like, Thomas, I miss the PlayStation style. In my head, as a businessman, I ignore those because I'm like, well, the traction's up. So, sorry.
Yeah.
You know?
I think Father looks great. Those creepy corridors, they look incredibly
Thank
marketable.
you.
I think this will work extremely well, especially with the Steam audience, because as far as I know, Steam audience is kind of known to like these dark first-person games. I think you're on the right track with that.
So what about Will You Snail is marketable to you? And what for people who are like, what do they mean by that? Mm-hmm. What I mean is, what makes it sellable? What makes it something that can be profitable? So what about Will You Snail do you feel is marketable, and what about it do you feel is not?
Yeah, so marketability is basically that feeling you get when you see a screenshot or a GIF or a short description and you're like, I want to play that.
Yep.
Will You Snail has a very good hook. Like, Will You Snail is a rage platformer where an AI predicts your movement. So you as a player go up against basically, it's a very simple AI algorithm behind the scenes, but it feels more intelligent than it is, you know. So you're kind of fighting this mental battle with the AI, and I feel like that is a very interesting hook. I've not seen this in any other game before, and I feel like that is something a lot of people find interesting. What I struggle with is a little bit, the art is mentioned. What I did well with the art is it pops. Like, if you see a screenshot or something, you notice it because it's very vibrant colors. It's very neonish and glowy, so it's not like you're gonna miss that GIF or something because it looks so. You just realize it's there, which happens with some games. So you notice it, but you're not like, this is something I instantly want to play. If you
How do you know that, though?
Because here's the one thing that makes a huge. It's like the ultimate hack for marketability. If your art style or if your art communicates the hook of your game. If, for example, you look at a screenshot or a GIF and you instantly understand the hook of the game, that is where the magic is really at, I think, because then you don't even need to explain the hook anymore. The problem is if people see your game and they don't understand the hook, then the hook is not in yet.
So Portal is a great example of that.
Put the hook in. Yeah.
Like Portal from you know, they don't even need the title, they don't need the description on Steam. They don't need anything. They could literally show a screenshot and you go, I got to play that. Right? Yeah. Which explains, I think Valve bought that from an indie team, that mechanic. They bought it. I could be wrong there, but if they did, let's assume they did, I understand why they would pay $10 million for that idea. Because that one idea is worth way more than that, clearly. So I mean, it's a shame because I'm not the idea guy. Like, I don't come up with really cool hooks and mechanics. My thing is storytelling and ambience and mood, and it is in 2D games. You would think that that's great, but there's so many 2D games out there that are moody, atmospheric games. And so being like, if your skill set, and I'm talking to the audience here, if your skill set is coming up with really good hooks, like Jonas mentioned, then you're all set. And obviously you gotta figure out how to get great art. But I think the hook, if you can get that hook, you're golden. And I think your hook is really cool.
You have to be a good communicator as well, because just having a hook is not enough. You need to find a way to communicate your hook with text and with visuals.
Right.
Not having a hook is not enough. You need to get the hook in. that's the point of a hook.
Well, but what's interesting though, and I've talked about this a lot on my channel, games like Hollow Knight don't have a hook. Right? Celeste, not really. There's no the hook is this game is like a Metroid game.
Yeah.
That's the hook.
Exactly, yeah. And the hook, I feel like the hook can also be the mood. For example, when I see Father, I instantly, the art and the sound and everything you set up instantly tells me, okay, this is a creepy first-person shooter. I instantly understand what the game is about. And the hook is in. And for the people who like those kind of games, it's a very strong hook. So it doesn't really matter if somebody who doesn't like those kind of games, okay, hook is not in. But for those people who do like those kind of games, the hook is in instantly because they instantly understand what the game is. So I feel like that works in your favor for Father. Yeah.
Thanks. I never really assumed, I guess I never thought about story or really mood and the look as a hook, you know? And maybe it is. Maybe it is. I always thought, what's the mechanic that's a hook? And the problem is, dude, is so like, and I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying I'm probably wrong in assuming that. The problem with a mechanic being a hook is that it's so hard to come up with a mechanic that's new, you know? And you have, I think, and also, dude, your video on how you made 1 billion different games, that's a hook. That's a hook, you know? And I found that making YouTube videos has really helped in figuring out what makes something clickable, you know? And I think the principles for a YouTube video and also a game are kind of the same, you know?
That's interesting that you say that because I had that thought as well, that really there's a lot of overlap between making YouTube videos and games because you kind of in both cases, you kind of have to put yourself into the shoes of the people who consume that content. You need to understand why they click it, why they play it, why they consume it. And you need to understand why they come back. You need to understand how you keep them engaged. Like that's the same for videos as well as for games, right? In YouTube videos, you try to keep people engaged for as long as possible, make them watch the entire video. And for games, you're mostly trying to do the same thing. You're trying to make sure people stay entertained and play through the entire game because if they don't, that probably means they didn't enjoy it all that much.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, very overlapping skill set.
It really is. So has I want to move on to sort of transition back to that. You're saying you're freaking out, right, with your launch.
Yeah.
When you say freaking out, what does it feel like?
It's this typical imposter syndrome of when this game's gonna come out, everybody's gonna think I'm a fraud. I don't know. It's just there are so many things that could go wrong. It's hard to describe. Like, how did you feel when your games were about to come out?
For me, it was about money because I needed money because I just found out we were gonna have a kid. Yeah. So I was
okay, I mean,
and it wasn't that she was an accident. It's just we were trying, but we were trying for like 2 years. And finally we got pregnant and I was like, well, not now. Like maybe let's do another year, right? No, we were thrilled, but it was scary. And so for me, it was about money. It was like, is this game going to bring in enough money to pay my mortgage, to pay for 1,000 diapers a day for this kid? And I'm not saying that's a more pure or like a better way to be freaked out, but there was the imposter syndrome, which is for me, it was like 5 years of working on this game. What if people find out that it's crap? And I had a Kickstarter audience that supported it for $100,000. And so I was like, man, I hope they like the game. So do you worry what people think about you as a game developer? Like, do you worry about what your audience thinks of you? Like, let's pretend that your audience did find out that you were a fraud. And you're not, by the way, but I love doing like what ifs. How would you handle it? Let's say you release your game, it's crap, and your audience says, you know what? I don't trust this guy anymore. What would that do to your ego?
Yeah, I mean, it would probably be healthy for my ego.
It wouldn't or would?
Oftentimes I'm realizing I'm really a spoiled little brat because all of those problems you just talked about, like worrying about money or something. Yeah, I don't really have that for this launch, at least because I still live at home with my dad.
Yeah.
I don't pay any rent actually, so there's just really no risk involved here on my side from a financial perspective. But I obviously I do worry about my future. You know, I want to start a family sometime, and I want to keep making games, hopefully for a very long time. So I do worry about that side of things, that if I don't figure out how to successfully make games now, then the chance of it working long term also go down quite significantly.
How old are you?
So that's what worries me about that entire thing. That, yeah, maybe the industry's changing fast and I can't keep up, and competition is growing too strong. I fall behind and I can't make games anymore. That would really be the worst case for me. But it's a very, it's very first world problem kind of thing, because
oh yeah, dude. And it never ends. It never ends, because once one of your hierarchy of needs is met, you just move on to the next one. And this is why you see, like, I'm sure Jeff Bezos worries all day long, and it's like, about what? His next rocket or something. I don't know. For me, like, things are going really well financially. I say finally they're going well financially for me. I mean, it's been about 2 years of really good income, and it was like 6 years of like difficulty, but me and my wife were talking about this last night. She was like, Thomas, you're more in your own head than you used to be. And I'm like, really? And she's like, yeah, you seem more stressed now than you used to be. And I'm like, but I'm not more stressed. But people around me are saying they see it. And I'm like, wow, like, why is that? Why is it that when things, like you said, like you said you're a spoiled kid. And I feel that way too. My wife used to say, you're a spoiled white kid, is what she used to say.
Yeah.
And I am. I'm super lucky.
Yeah.
So so if you launched your game and it failed and it flopped, and the reason I'm asking this is because a lot of people listening right now are thinking, Thomas and Jonas are stronger than I am. I'm too scared to make a game or put myself out there on social media. I guess my question is, are you brave?
I don't know. It's hard for me to tell. All I can say is, if you feel like you couldn't do this, or you're not mentally strong enough or whatever, just maybe have a look at the first videos I uploaded to my channel. They were complete crap. Like, I'm just a normal person, really. And when I started getting into this entire YouTube game dev stuff, when I decided to go full-time indie, I actually had a couple of, like, sometimes I was just shivering. I didn't know why, and my heart was pounding. So so basically, like, mini little stress attacks that I didn't even know where they were coming from, but clearly I was very stressed and anxious at that time. And then when Islanders came out and Islanders worked, a lot of that stress settled and disappeared, luckily. But I was incredibly scared when I got into this. And the thing with stress and being scared is oftentimes you don't even realize it while it's happening.
Yeah,
it's kind of the thing you're talking about as well. Like, if you're stressed, you don't have time to worry. You don't have time to kind of feel stressed. Almost, you don't really feel it. Like, it's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, has it gotten easier? I describe the leap to becoming a game developer, or to pursuing this career, which, by the way, it's a gamble. It's scary. There's no guarantees that it'll pay off. Yeah, but I describe 100%. It as jumping off of a cliff and hoping the parachute opens, especially if you have a family and you quit your job. And by the way, for those of you who have a family, don't quit your job to do this. Start slow. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the trick is to jump off the cliff with a parachute, not without a parachute.
Correct. That's the great point. And I was talking to a friend of mine. He said, Thomas, you're just more of a risk taker than I am. I can't do stuff like that. And I said, I quit my job with $100,000 in the bank because of Kickstarter, and it actually was more than that. And I'm going, no, I'm not a risk taker. I just know how to build up enough confidence and safety to be able to take the next big leap.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are probably listening going, well, crap, I don't have $100,000. Well, here's the thing. If you're going to start making games, you've got to figure out how to network and find people, including funding, or like you did, find a team and start slow that can bring you income later, right? So being able to sniff out where the money is like half of the skill, I think, of running a studio and making sure it's profitable so that you can be an artist and not worry as an artist, you know?
Mm-hmm. And kind of what ties that all together are really communication skills. I feel like you need to be good at making friends, talking to people, communicating to people what your game is about, what makes your game unique. Those communication skills are very, very important for sniffing out the money, I feel like. Because even if you sell a course or something, you can't do that without good communication skills. No. You need to convince people to buy the course.
Ultimately, otherwise, in the end, do you ever feel like you're becoming a sleazy businessman? It's okay if you don't, but do you ever sit there and go, why do I care about these things that I didn't think I was going to care about? Like I watched your video and you were doing a privacy policy, and it's like all this stuff you didn't think you'd have to do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm basically already laid out my point on that earlier. I'm very much of the opinion that it's not a zero-sum game, right? It's not like I'm taking money from people or not giving anything in return. It's an exchange. I take wish lists, I take your money, I give you free YouTube content, I give you hopefully fun games. Yeah. So I don't feel, as long as that is kind of in balance and I feel like I'm not taking more than I give, I kind of feel pretty okay about myself, to be honest.
Good. Yeah. Good. All right. Well, as we wrap up this conversation, dude, first off, if you could just let everybody know a little bit about Will You Snail, and how they can wishlist it. There's a link below, by the way.
Will You Snail is a rage platformer where an AI tries to predict your movement, but there are also difficulty settings if you're not a super skilled platformer expert. That's fine as well. There are a lot of my playtesters say they usually don't play platformer games, but they really enjoyed Will You Snail. So I think it could be worth checking it out. It's coming out very soon. It's also coming to Steam, PlayStation, Nintendo Switch, and Xbox. And yeah, definitely wishlist it on Steam.
What is soon? That would be
very much appreciated. March.
Okay. Do you have an exact day? Do you know?
Yes, I have a date, but it's not announced yet.
So, okay. You're
that will be announced.
Really quick, regarding the porting of the console version.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you're not doing that.
No.
Good for you. Good for you.
Exactly. Yeah, I found a publisher for console versions. It's No Gravity Games. I think if I remember, I reached out to a couple of console publishers and porting studios, but I think in the case of No Gravity Games, they actually reached out to me. They found my trailer on Steam and they liked it. So they asked me if they can port the game to consoles. I was like, yes, sounds cool.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm looking at their website right now. They look legit. Sweet.
Yeah, they're a pretty nice team from the interactions I've had so far.
Where are they located?
Yeah.
Let's see here. They're in Warsaw, Poland. That's funny. I'm talking to a publisher in Poland as well for Father.
So Father coming to consoles confirmed?
Well, I like to work with publishers for different reasons. Obviously they help, they help with console, but I'm not a risk taker like I was talking about earlier. And so if a publisher says, hey, here's 6 figures, I can't say the number, but if they say here's six figures, a high 6-figure number, I'm like, it's really hard for me to reject that, So, and it also motivates me to finish my game. It's like, okay, I got the money, now we can go ahead and finish it, and then let's do another one, The risk is gone, the worry about how much money it's going to make is gone. So that's me being completely honest as to why I like working with publishers.
That's actually that's not too bad. Yeah, then you have the risk off your shoulders, and then suddenly the publishers also have a very good incentive to really market your game properly because they want to make their money back.
Yep.
So I feel like setting correct incentives is always something that helps a ton. So if you have a publisher that actually wants to sell a lot of games, that really helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in conclusion here, Jonas, should people make indie games solo despite it sucking?
If you can find a great team to work with, don't make games solo. If you have no other choice, make games solo.
Do you need money? Do you need money to hire a team, or can you do partnerships?
Actually, doing revenue share partnerships is the preferable way if you have people that are really good at what they do and you trust them. I would actually recommend doing revenue share because, first of all, it's cheaper. You don't have to pay them anything.
Cheaper in the short term. Cheaper in the short term for clarity.
Okay, but no, not really. If you consider the
Are
second
you sure?
point I'm about to say.
Okay, let's say you hire a team.
The second point.
Okay.
The second point is if you do it on a revenue share basis with actually really skilled people who know what they're doing, they have a way bigger incentive to put in their best. They feel like it's their own project and they will give it their best. And that is a problem you'll always struggle with when you just give people a paycheck, is they'll just try to make you happy and make you shut up. But like it's never the same amount of passion somebody puts in if they feel like it's their project and they're gonna benefit from the results. So revenue share is if you can split your revenue 50-50 with a skilled person you really trust, go for that. It'll make both of you more money in the long run.
Interesting. Yet you decided not to do that for your second game. I'm curious as to why that is.
Well, I'm new to the industry. I made one commercial game in a team. Now I made one commercial game solo. I kind of, I'm just trying different things out, seeing what works. And now I did both. I made a game in a team. I made a game solo. I kind of know what the advantages and disadvantages of both are. For example, one really strong advantage of making games solo is that you can make very personal games. Like Will You Snail is not a game I could have made in a team because it's so weird, it's so messed up.
It is very you. I love it.
If I had made this with anybody else, they probably would have vetoed a lot of the ideas I wanted to have in the game. So you can make more unique and more personal games alone, but you can make more profitable games and games more people are likely to enjoy in a team.
Yeah. In a weird way, having a check on your leadership and somebody going, no, that might be a bad idea, Thomas.
Mm.
That actually is great because I'm looking at all the things that I was gonna do for Father, and I'm like, thank God I had Felipe, my 3D modeler, and Hector and Gordon and Adam, all these people saying, whoa, I don't really know if I like that, Thomas. And it's a nice balance.
Yeah. That's really good if you don't just surround yourself with yes men.
I know.
Great for you if you manage to do that.
Should there be a team lead though?
It depends on the size of the team. Up to 3 people, you don't need a team lead. If you have more than 3 people in your team, you probably need something like that. Because if you have 3 people, you can always find a majority, right? It almost always happens that 2 people vote out the one opinion who says something else. So 3 people teams work really well. Not too sure about 2 people teams. I feel like probably clashing heads a little more often with 2 people teams.
Yeah.
And then if you have more than 3 people in your team, then you kind of need it needs to be clear who's in charge of what, so the arguments don't spiral out of control.
Okay.
You feel like that makes sense?
Yeah, dude. I think that I did a 50-50 a two-person team game for Neversong, and I was declared the team lead by the publisher because I was working with the publisher's developer, and so that worked out really well because in the end, we did fight, and it wasn't his fault. It was probably my fault. We did have arguments. And fortunately, at one point, I mean, I can be a humble guy. I can. A lot of people probably don't think I can be, but I can be a humble guy and say, you're right. Like that's a great idea. I was wrong there. So I would either submit and say, you're right, especially when it came to the code, because that was his thing. But when it came to the story, it felt nice to be able to go, no, this is the vision. Like, we're going to stick with this. And so that was something that I appreciated. So for your next game, what's the plan? Are you going to do a team? You want to lead it?
Next game is very likely going to be a 2-person team with one of the people I made Islanders with. So 2-people team for the next one, probably. with 50-50 revenue share.
And you want to lead it, or do you want to do sort of a partnership?
Yeah, partnership.
Cool. All right, Jonas. Guys, wishlist, Will You Snail below. This is a huge help to Jonas. You guys heard his story. He's being honest with you. It's a tough and stressful time for him. So let's all support Jonas, and at the very least, just wishlist the game and help stroke his ego a little bit and get those numbers up to 27,000.
Yes. I don't feel like we've exhausted what we can talk about here. We should definitely repeat this another time.
I would love to. Don't forget, you have a channel to host me on.
Yes. Yeah. When is Father coming out?
Father is coming out when I'm dead. I don't know. We're in the early stages. We're trying to get a demo ready for GDC. Okay. We're gonna be at GDC with somebody. I'll announce who I'm with, but it's it's taking
it looks
forever.
So finished on the live streams,
but it's like only one level, you know.
Okay.
And it's such a stressful time. One final thing. It's so stressful when you're like, this looks so good, and you've been like fine-tuning stuff for 6 months, and then you go, wait a second, it's like 15 minutes of gameplay. There's nothing else. And so I'm like, we got to get on to other levels and start bringing in the story, because all we've been focusing on is like this one level and the mood and the look. And then
what happened to this outside area in front of the house?
We're working on that right now. Yeah, we're working on that right now, and my 3D modeler is doing it right now. It's called Sodom's Hollow, and it's sort of the foothills of basically Dracula's castle, and then you enter the castle and start going up. It's going great, you know. Going from that PlayStation vibe, that pixelated vibe, to my opinion is, as an indie developer, you don't want to go for the hyper realistic look, or even slightly realistic, because then suddenly you're presenting your game as, I'm gonna act like I'm AAA, and then when they play your game, they're like, this is not AAA, but it looks AAA. So it's literally a marketing presentation thing. So what we're doing is we're going, okay, we have this PlayStation style, and then we're going to just sort of this middle ground, and Islanders was that. It was like this stylized look, right? And it was clear from the presentation, yes, this is a 3D game and it's gorgeous, but it's clearly an indie game and it's worth $20 or whatever you guys sold it for, you know? So it's really a marketing question.
Probably, yeah.
What's that?
$5 Islanders.
$5, really?
We sold it very cheap, yeah.
Well, good for you, you know? That I've seen that as a successful strategy for a lot of people, actually. Because I'm looking at it right now, and it looks like it's wildly successful. And so that's just a pretty good indicator, you know. I'm assuming you guys have sold 100,000 copies minimum. You can't disclose it, can you?
Yeah, it's more.
It's more than that. So it's doing really well.
Yeah, but I don't know the exact numbers, and I probably also shouldn't disclose them. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you're saving all that money up. Good for you. That's awesome. I love this. It looks so pretty.
A safety buffer now, which is kind of nice.
Yeah,
but it's not like it's gonna last me a lifetime or anything. So still need to make more games.
Yeah. No, just put it into Dogecoin. No, I'm kidding.
Man, you know, I think we just need to make a hard cut here, because we could keep talking forever, and you said last thing about 5 times. So let's just do another video soon, and we'll talk more then.
I'd love to, Jonas. All right, guys. Thank you for watching. Jonas, thanks for joining us. Cheers.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Yep.
Cheers.